What's going on? James Grage here, and today we are going to break down the difference between a PPL or a push-pull leg split versus a traditional bro split. Now, through the years, I've heard a lot of questions, a lot of confusion surrounding the difference between the two. Who is one better for? Is it better for beginners, intermediate, advanced? What do rotations look like as far as rest days? So a lot of questions. So in this video, really dive into it and break down the differences. And I think by the end of this is going to help you decide which one is best for you. The most basic version of a PPL is just going to be a 3-day routine where you're only doing it 3 days a week. So you could maybe do it Monday, rest Tuesday, Wednesday, rest Thursday, Friday. People ask if a PPL is for beginners. That would be your beginner PPL version. Is it the only way to start if you're a beginner? No, it's just a way to start. We're going to be talking about a more advanced version of a PPL, which is doing body parts twice a week. Let's start with the most basic, which some people, you'll hear them refer to this as a synchronous version of it, meaning that it's always going to be the exact same every week with the exact same rest day. So off is our rest day. In this version, Sunday is your off day. Doesn't have to be. You can pick one. Most people pick Sunday. So then it's going to go push, pull, legs. And by the way, some people are going to ask, what about pull, push legs? We'll talk about that here in a second. And then without a rest, it's going to turn around and it's going to repeat. Push, pull, pick this one up off the floor, and legs. Every week, exactly the same. What do I not like about this? Well, that's 6 days in a row of training. And some people are going to say, yeah, but that's the advantage of doing a push-pull leg format is we're going to be training all these muscle groups here on a push day, and then we're turning around doing the opposite muscle groups the next day, and then finally legs. So we're getting 2 full rest days minimum before we start again. The problem is there's a difference between resting a muscle group before training it again versus overall rest for your body, recovery time. You know, the magic for building muscle really is going to come down to proper amount of stimulus, how much, how hard are you training, how often are you training, and balancing that with the right amount of recovery. And there's a lot of variables there, which we'll talk about here probably at the end of this. Got some questions that people have submitted, so I'll answer those. So that's what I don't particularly care about this, is only 1 off day a week. If you were to do this for 8 weeks, that means you would get 8 rest days in 8 weeks. It means you're getting a lot of training days, but more isn't always better. So that's version 1. Version 2 is what you'll hear people refer to as asynchronous. So it starts off the same, off, push, pull, legs, and then we go off. And then it turns around and it repeats, push, pull. Now, Sunday's not an off day anymore. Now that's legs, right? So push, pull, legs. Then we go off. So our off day shifted. Push, pull, legs, off. And this is why they call it asynchronous, because you can see that your off day rotates. So advantages, disadvantages. Well, advantage number 1, you're getting more rest days right off the bat. Over an 8-week period, depending on which day of the week you start, you're gonna get, I wanna say it, did the notes here, I think 14 days of rest in an 8-week period. So 14 days of rest, 42 days of training, as opposed to our synchronous was 8 days of rest and 48 days of training. Again, remember, more isn't always better. So that's the upside. More rest days. What's the downside? Well, this
this rotating off day. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm a creature of habit, and I believe that the most important thing, rule number one for any kind of training program, and I put it above everything else, is consistency, right? It's not just how hard you train today or tomorrow, but doing that week after week after week, right? So if that's number one, then build a program where it's easier to be consistent. To me, this is a little bit challenging. Like, I wanted to just know what my off day is every single week. I don't want to have to sit there and, refer to a notebook or to a calendar or some sort of, day planner just to figure out what my workout is for that week. So that's what I don't like about this. Now, just in case you're wondering, with this repeating, I think it's on week 5 that it finally starts over again at the same place with Sunday as your off day. So, over a course of 5 weeks, it's always rotating from week to week. So that's what I don't like about it. Now, there is a variation. Let's call it a hybrid version that is synchronous. This is the one I prefer. Let me show you what that would look like. So let's take these down for a second. It's going to go push, pull, and you can switch this up how you want. This is what I like though. Push, pull, off, legs, push, pull. Now, I keep Sunday and Wednesday my off days every single week. We'll just throw a couple up there. So you still have the same rotation, but your rest days are consistent from week to week. So week 1 is going to be push, pull, off, followed by legs, push, pull, which means our next one has to be legs. So Monday is different than the previous week. So there is still a rotation here, but at least our training days are more consistent. So then after legs, we turn around and we go back to push. Wednesday's our off day. So then we turn around and we do a pull. And so every week, these are shifting, but at least we have Sunday off and Wednesday off. So 2 things that I like about this. 1, more consistency from week to week, at least with my rest days. I can plan my week better. If you're a person with a busy schedule, this is a little more conducive. If you're a professional bodybuilder and your only job is just training, well, then that's different. You can make it as complicated as you want to make it, especially if you have someone training you who's, pulling out their notebook and saying, okay, today we're doing this, today we're doing that, and you don't have to think about it. But if you do have to think about it and you have other shit going on, then, a little more consistency is going to be better. So that's number 1 thing that I like about it. Number 2, you get a little bit more rest overall. So our previous version, I calculate over an 8-week period. We had our 14 days off of rest in 8 weeks. This, you have 2 extra days, 16 days off. This is closer to what I would typically do in a bro split, which, if you're wondering why I followed a bro split for so long, one of the things was consistency. I was training 5 days a week because I don't believe in training more than 3 days in a row without a rest period. Again, there's other factors there when it comes to recovery, age being a big one, hormones being a massive one. But for me, I need more recovery, especially if I'm going to train hard. If you're going to train half-assed, well, then yeah, recovery really isn't an issue. You could probably do that first version, that synchronous version, and train 6 days in a row and be fine because maybe you're just not training that hard. But with typical bro split, what I do is I would have Sunday off. Then I would go ahead and I would train the same, every week. It doesn't have to be what everyone else does. A lot of people traditionally obviously did chest. That's why everyone in the gym on Monday was doing chest. I like to break it up, but doing a back day, biceps, triceps on a day, leg is its own day, but it was following the same format of 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. So I was getting the rest periods that I liked. I had the consistency not only in my rest days, but consistency with my training days. So every week I knew exactly what to expect. It's kind of brainless. Now, is one more effective than the other? Man, that's debatable. I mean, if I really thought the PPL or training twice, a body part twice a week was necessary, then I would have switched a long time ago, but it really wasn't necessary. You can build plenty of muscle with a bro split as long as you're bringing the right amount of intensity to each of those workouts. Do you need 6 days of recovery in between muscle groups? No, not necessarily, but at the end of the day, it really just comes down to stimulus. With a bro split, I can hit one body part with more exercises, more volume, and really hammer that versus with a PPL, just because you're training multiple body parts at the same time, you can't do that same kind of volume per body part. Otherwise, this workout here would be like 2.5 hours long. So all you're doing is you're taking that total volume and now you're splitting it up a little bit. Do I think that you can get more overall work in with a PPL? I do. Comes at a cost though. You know, people say, you know, doing a PPL twice a week, is that an intermediate program? Yeah, an intermediate person can do it, but to me, it's more advanced. It's a lot of work. You know, the recovery periods are critical because if you're really pushing yourself, bringing that same level of intensity per body part that you would do with a bro split, then yeah, it's pretty intense. There are a few common questions, and I wrote these down, that I see a lot, so I wanted to address these. First question, we kind of answer this, is PPL better for beginners? Yes and no. The 3-day a week definitely makes it easy, but if you're a beginner, does that mean you have to do a PPL? No. Do whatever kind of workout program you want. I mean, they're all effective as long as you're bringing the right amount of intensity to your workouts. I think 3 days a week, if you've never trained before, probably not a bad way to start, and a PPL is an easy split. Next question, does PPL twice a week work better than a bro split? Again, it's debatable. I think it comes down to the individual. Again, age is gonna be a big factor. We talked about, you know, hormones. Look, this is where anabolics definitely come in. If you're on a bunch of gear, you can get away with a lot more because it is going to help you with your recovery. So you can go in there and you can destroy yourself in the gym and probably still recover from that. If you're a natural guy, you've got to be a little more conscientious about that and you got to focus on those recovery periods. So there is no black and white answer. It really is going to depend on you finding that perfect balance, like we talked about, between stimulus versus recovery. So this is your journey. You know, there's people that can give you suggestions on what they did, what worked for them, but it's up to you to figure out what works for you. This idea of functional efficiency with a PPL versus focused inefficiency of a bro split. So I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I think what they mean by this is functional efficiency, meaning that in a PPL, these muscles right here are all synergists. They all work together. So when you're doing bench press, which is working chest, you're also working anterior delts and you're also working triceps at the same time. So there's a synergy between all of that. So if there's a synergy, that also means there's an efficiency there versus focused inefficiency of a bro split. So focused inefficiency, meaning that typically in a bro split, you're training a lot of times antagonistic muscles. So biceps and triceps as a good example. So putting all your effort, right, this very focused intensity into just one body part, which is why a lot of times with a bro split, you're gonna see people focusing a little bit more on isolation techniques to really target a particular muscle group. A lot of people, when they do a PPL, are doing more compound movements. Doesn't mean you have to, but typically you see a lot of that because if I'm doing, like I said, chest, bench press, compound movement, it's working all three of those. Does a PPL focus more on compound movements versus isolation in the bro split? We talked about that. You do see that a lot, but it doesn't mean you're limited to that. You can do just as much isolation exercise in a PPL as you would a bro split. It just happens to be conducive probably to doing more compound movements. And then next question, am I getting enough rest with a 6-day-a-week synchronized split? We already talked about that. In my opinion, no. But again, depends on you. Maybe you can get away with it. If you're really young, fresh, recovery is good. Again, anabolics being a factor. But again, totally up to you to figure out what's going to work. If you start feeling really worn down, man, if you're worn down, then you are not going to grow. And I hear a lot of people talking about how overtraining is not a real thing. That's the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. Your average person probably doesn't suffer from overtraining. Why? Simply because they're not training hard enough. It doesn't matter if they're following a PPL or a bro split. They're just not putting the right amount of intensity in. But if you're training really, really hard, especially training body parts twice a week, then recovery is an issue and overtraining is a real thing. So if you start to feel worn down, not only is it going to slow down your progress with building muscle, going to set you up for getting sick, etc. That's always a good sign. If you find yourself getting worn out and getting sick, good chance you're not getting enough recovery. Let's see. We're getting close to the end here. What's the downside of a PPL? Well, I think we already talked about that, which really is just going to come down to, does it fit your schedule? Is this easy enough for you to follow? If it feels too complex, then it's probably not the right one for you.
So there you go. Hopefully that answered some questions. I can tell you that after doing a bro split for more than 30 years, that suited me really well. I liked it. I got great results from it. I like the consistency of the schedule. With that being said, after doing a PPL over the course of several months, I actually came to enjoy it. I think for me personally, there are some distinct benefits. One of them that I liked was working synergistic muscles together. So say, for example, on chest day, you're working triceps and you're working shoulders. So then to turn around and do shoulder presses or triceps pushdowns, that muscle is already nice and warm. The joint is nice and loose. And so for me, overall, my body felt great. I had less injuries. So I think that's another peripheral benefit that a lot of people don't talk about. But with that being said, it's just another tool in the arsenal now. I still like the bro split, but I also like the PPL as well. Try them both, see which one you like better. So if you like this video, please go ahead and give it a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'm James Grage, and I will see you next video.